Hello and welcome to Dorks on Sports, a podcast about four dorks talking about sports. My name is Daniel. Joining me, as always, is Curtis. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing good. I'm
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the Seahawks in 2023.
Yeah.
I'm happy that they're going to bring Gino back, and they're going to figure out the front seven of that defense this coming year.
It feels okay.
It'll be
Like
fun.
we said, we were playing with house money. It was fun just to be there.
Yeah.
The fucking 49ers. For a while, we hung around.
Yeah, we did. Scared them a little bit, and then they
That's
woke
right.
up.
Right.
Woke up out of their pot nap.
And then we got Millie. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Doing good.
Yeah. And Alana.
Doing all right.
Right. Yeah, that was a fun game. Here's the thing. I think that game was a little bit closer than that final score indicates. Like, if it wasn't for three costly mistakes, kind of in that second half, that score, that's a closer game than it should have been. But a fumble and kind of took the momentum all away.
Yeah, the calls on Damian Lewis seemed to spark a fair amount of controversy.
Here's the thing that bothered me about that game. That first half, the refs were letting the players play, and I loved it. They were letting the players play physical. They weren't calling like ticky-tack calls. It was football that I liked. And then in that second half, they started calling like a bunch of bullshit ticky-tack calls. I hate the ineligible receiver downfield call. I think it's bullshit. And those were the worst of the ticky-tack. And I don't know why, like, suddenly there was an emphasis on that in the second half, but it totally swung that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it swung that game as much as, sadly, the fumble.
Yeah.
Well, and it could be argued that the fumble wouldn't have existed if that ineligible penalty hadn't been called, right? Like, was it
Fair
that
enough.
one or was it a false start? There was a penalty that sent him back.
I think the
Wasn't that one of our 2-yard rules?
the illegal down the field call on Lewis negated a play that would have put Seattle at the 6-yard line,
right near the goal line, which
so
then
I
you start
think-
feeding it to K9.
Yeah, Carroll made a big point about that today in his appearances on the radio and with the press conferences that was because it was being asked about. Was sort of been the thing talked about a lot on the radio, I think, and his response was interesting. It was just like, it was like something that, the league was emphasizing more of on the run pass option plays coming in. So the players are sort of aware that this was happening. But on that particular play call, that wasn't that type of play that was occurring. So that was sort of like the tricky sort of hang up thing of like, that wasn't even like, that's an offensive lineman in motion selling the run to sort of, trick the defense, but they can only go so far. But that wasn't, it was just sort of like he was basically sort of painting a scenario where that there's room to suggest that that would be something that maybe another officiating crew would sort of let slide in that moment.
Right.
Sort of thing like that.
I think that for me, when you get down to the core of it, I agree with you that it was closer than the final score indicated, but it also wasn't. Like San Francisco came out in the second half and just said, we've been fucking around all game and you're not as good a team as we are. And so we're going to beat you. And so like, that's really where, so if we're talking about, the bad calls from the refs, like I would argue that 2 of those were legit. It just was weird that it was being called because like we haven't seen an emphasis on that in the way that officiating teams have been calling it. Like it just seemed to pop up in that game. to a certain degree. The fact that we're left kind of saying that could have turned the tide when, in fact, Gino fumbled that and threw an interception later, and then Lockett didn't do anything throughout the game, and we kind of were reliant entirely on DK for the game. That's not our recipe for winning at all. And even though we had a really great first half, when oh God, I can't remember who it was. The player twisted Debo's leg and it didn't get called, and it wasn't even really Tariq. Egregious. It wasn't Tariq. It was somebody else.
Abrams.
Abrams.
Oh, that's right.
The Niners were like, we're not going to let little brother do that to us. We're winning this game. And so, like, what do you expect when you're the 7th seed? We were all excited about the game to happen, but like spending time dissecting the calls and which way they went and whether they were reasonably called, like, we got beat. Like, that's, from my perspective, it's a good thing that we did in this way, because we now see what the gap is and we now see what we have to work on. In a way, we got beat by this team 3 times and we played them differently each time and it didn't work. So back to the drawing board. And I think we can really build on that in 2023, which is something that I'm excited to do.
Yeah, I'm not by any means saying that like the officiating decided this game at all.
I was impressed by how well Seattle's offense was able to move the ball on the number 1 defense in the league on the road. Like, that was pretty impressive. There was 2 costly turnovers in the second half, but those turnovers are happening when particularly the interception, when the 49er offense is scoring at will and driving at will, and Seattle has to sort of get out of its preferred method of playing, mixing run and pass, and really just sort of passing at that point and stuff against a defense that is known to do exactly that, to get strip sacks and to get picks.
Yeah. And time was running out at that point. I think Gino was just trying to make a play. At that point, I think Gino was like, if we make this pass or we lose this game, like, I'll thread it in. If it gets intercepted, we were going to lose this game anyway.
Well, the reality is, too, if you look at a lot of the ways in which we did handle their defense, I think we've given a map to other teams, because Bosa, right? Where was he? I mean,
yeah.
completely held back from making a big impact on our offense. And that alone is a huge win, and is something any other team that's going to play is going to be looking at. How did that work? Yeah, and we did that with 2 really young guys playing their asses off. So I absolutely saw things that I loved, and I was thrilled to see DK have the game he had, because we all know that that's the player he can be and how good he is. And that
connection
game,
that he has with Gino.
Him so tight. Gino couldn't get the ball, and he's trying to force the ball, all these things that was like so frustrating in that final game. And then we do this playoff game and it's all working. And that was the first half. But then you're going to make those adjustments. And that is in this game, we needed Tyler, and that interception that was headed for Tyler. I haven't listened to all the pressers and the explanations, but the way in which Tyler responded tells me he thinks he screwed it up. He wasn't quite in the right place, and that's what it looked like. So he took it on himself. He internalized it. There was just this mood shift, because they'd been so on top of everything that you could feel it shift away from them, and they just never got it back. And it's too bad, because the first half really was fulfilling. And honestly, because of the first half, it didn't break my heart where we lost in the second and we got our asses handed to us because we played so well in the first. I don't think their defense was holding back necessarily, but I think they could make those adjustments for the second half once they realized how we were playing them. And that is what the better team can do, is make second half adjustments. I mean, that's football, right? Is adjusting when you're not beating on all fronts. So for me, it was a game I could be proud of from a team that I didn't expect to make the playoffs, that I thought would win 5 games. I am thrilled and impressed, and I love all of these guys, and I don't want any of them to go anywhere.
Yeah, I would actually say, like, in that second half, the Seahawks defense played pretty well. They just couldn't finish. Like, they were harassing Purdy pretty good. They just couldn't get him. Like they just couldn't sack him. He was just getting away and making some plays that maybe a more disciplined team would actually finish the job.
I watched the game with my dad, and he called Purdy a slippery little critter.
I guess we need pest control then.
Right.
And that was
He's
really
squirrely though. I mean, he's really
He is
good.
squirrely.
I actually walked away from that game going like, because I've been sort of on the fence about Purdy. It's been sort of a fun story for them down there, but I'm kind of like, well, he's got the best offensive line in the league, and he's got like probably like the best overall collection of weapons in the league, and he's got the #1 defense in the league. So how hard is it really for him right now to like step in? I mean, obviously he has the pedigree. He was a 4-year starter in college, and they liked him enough during training camp and stuff, but you know, and so all that, I've been sort of dismissive about him. And then I watched this game and I'm just like, oh no, they've got their quarterback. Like, this is their quarterback.
for sure.
You know,
I'd roll with them over Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. Over Jimmy G. Sure. He's playing fast and loose out there too. It's not often that you get a rookie who's just that relaxed and confident. But again, like, it's a little bit easier to play relaxed and confident when everybody else around you is that good.
very 2012 Russell Wilson. Perfectly honest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think discipline was the key to that second half. The Niners had it, and the Seahawks, I don't want to say they didn't have it, but when they didn't have it, you know, some costly mistakes were made. And when you make those mistakes against a good and disciplined team like the San Francisco 49ers, it's going to be real hard to win that game. Playoffs in particular, it's the teams that go on, that move on, are well coached and well disciplined, you know, and I think we saw that all throughout the wild card. It was the teams that could make the adjustments. It was the teams that had good coaching and had disciplined teams. Even like, the Jacksonville game where Trevor Lawrence makes a bunch of mistakes, and they're a really well-coached team. Doug Peterson is a good coach, and he's the kind of coach that can bring a team back. You know who's not a good coach? The coach of the Chargers. Yeah, I mean, that's what you see in the playoffs, right? It's a bad coach versus a good coach. The good coach is probably going to win that game. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I'm not saying that Carroll's a bad coach, but Shanahan's a good one, Carroll's a good one, and it's all going to come down to
They
discipline.
fired him yet? The Chargers coach?
No.
No, but
Well,
I was listening to ESPN radio, and I was switching back and forth between ESPN radio and Fox Sports radio on my way down from Bellingham, because that's where I was on Saturday watching the games. And so I was hearing that whole outcome happen, and between both the nationally syndicated sports radio stations that I was flipping back and forth with, from both sets of sports radio hosts were talking about how Brandon Staley needed to get fired like ASAP, and they need to go after what's his name? Sean Payton.
Sean
And
Payton. Oh,
there's all
Sean
this
Payton lives
speculation.
in LA and he wants to coach for the Chargers. Like
Well,
that's
who wouldn't really, as a quarterback-minded, supposed guru, want Justin Herbert on a rookie
Totally.
contract? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
that's like an ideal spot for him.
that is. But that would be a
I
scary.
just think
team
it's
with
funny
Sean
everybody
Payton.
wants Peyton so bad. Like,
Me too. I totally agree with you. Like, oh, cool. He made it to the Super Bowl twice. And then the last 6 years of his career, he was like sitting at 7-9, couldn't get into the playoffs. Like he's the amount that a head coach who has already had an established career in the NFL can change a team is fairly limited. What we see when teams change is the McVays. We see the Brian Dabols. We see these first-time head coaches. We see the Dan Campbells. We see the Mike McDaniels. All these right now. That's kind of the trend. It seems is like first-time head coaches coming into a space and implementing their vision. When you have somebody who comes back after a year in the media, you have a Gruden situation, or you have Ron Rivera from Carolina to Washington. Like they don't do anything, and it feels to me like retread. And I'm not saying this is necessarily reflective of a long time ago. Like I know that Carroll is a retread coach, but that was something that was a little that's more reflective of now, is that we need young blood in these coaching environments because they bring new vision and they bring new ideas, and they bring an ability to communicate with players in a different way. And I feel like even Peyton going to San Diego, Los Angeles, the Chargers, like I don't think that that's a guaranteed home run. I don't think it's a guaranteed home run for anybody, and you have to kind of cope with giving up a first-round draft pick.
yeah, he's very expensive.
Yeah, he could be. Yeah. I mean, all reports, New Orleans grades him as like mid-high round draft pick. First round
They
draft
should.
pick. Like that's what they're looking for.
They
Yeah.
should.
Oh,
I mean,
and
they have no reason not to ask that or more,
Yeah.
frankly. And if no team bites on that, then that keeps, head coach. I mean, you can call him a retread or you can call him proven or however you want to think about it, but that keeps him out of the league that they don't have to like play against,
don't
so,
worry about it.
like, so yeah, I mean, it's like if somebody wants Sean Payton, pony up. It's gonna cost you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see what Payton could do. He could be he could not be a mediocre be a coach for a mediocre team, or it could be Andy Reid, all over again. Andy Reid was thought of that way too, of like, maybe he had his time in Philly and what has he done with them lately, and they let him go, and well, now he's coach of arguably the best team in the NFL.
Getting fired from a professional sports team in Philadelphia is not necessarily a death sentence.
Or either Andy Reid or Doug Peterson.
Apparently.
It's like, yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Now Doug Peterson. I'm happy for the Jags. I've been rooting for Doug Peterson. I thought he was that he was a good coach for that franchise, and I'm not all in on Trevor Lawrence yet, but when a quarterback can come back from that kind of mistake and win a playoff game, that takes some grit. Like that's some guts. I think
from
cool.
from 4 interceptions to 4
interceptions.
touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
I
exciting.
think that shows something.
Yeah. Well, and as a fan, it's fun. We got a piece of that in that Green Bay championship game. When Russ threw his own 4 picks.
I thought it was 5.
Was it 5?
He threw
I could be wrong.
5 picks.
5 picks, yeah.
Woof. Yeah. And then he came back to win it.
So it's going to be Peterson versus Reed then in their playoff, right? That's awesome.
It's the
Super
Philly
fun.
Bowl.
It's the
Yeah.
Philly ball.
And they were both fired kind of like unceremoniously. It says here that Peterson was fired from the Eagles over disagreements about his assistant coaching staff. It's like
It
that
feels
doesn't
like,
seem like a reason to fire a guy, especially because he brought the Super Bowl.
I know, like firing people unceremoniously seems like their thing, you know? Like, who was their quarterback who's now in Washington?
Wentz.
Quince.
And they
Quince. It kind of felt like he
drafted-
was fired unceremoniously too.
they drafted Jalen Hurts, and I think they I can't remember if there was like controversy where they wanted Peterson to play, the GM wanted Peterson to play Hurts or over Wentz, and
Wentz.
Peterson was like, he's not ready, and stuff like that. And so I think there was like a butting of the head there. And then there was also, I think, like, I don't know, I've followed Doug Peterson fairly closely, and I know that like there was a few seasons in a row where he was desperate to get more receiver help, and they were pretty much drafting every other position in the first few rounds. But and yeah, so there was.
That's what happens when your coach and GM aren't on the same page. Other games that I thought maybe my favorite game of the weekend was Bengals Ravens. I thought that was a really fun game. And that fumble for a touchdown ended up being the longest fumble for a touchdown in playoff history, 98 yards.
It was also the longest play that changed the lead in the fourth quarter in NFL history.
That's awesome. Yeah. That Wildcard Weekend, man. You always get shit like that. I love it.
Oh.
I thought it was I thought the games were sensational this weekend, except for the one that was on tonight. You're right, that Bengals Ravens game was great. I kind of expected it to be a little less good because Huntley is just like dollar store
Backup.
dollar store Lamar Jackson. I also didn't expect that much from the Jacksonville Chargers game, but that game was absolutely thrilling to watch, and watching the Chargers charger all over their charging charged.
God.
It's just like it was a perfect Chargers loss. And then what was the other one? The Giants. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was I mean, the G-Men, the Giants, Danny Dimes, the game of his life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just enjoyed the heck out of that. I'm still not sure I understand. There's a lot of stuff with the post show. Like his coach really didn't seem to be like excited about his play, but the rest of us were. And his ability to quarterback sneak and take every bent back position on the way to get there is just something to behold. I was so proud of the Giants. We talked about it before, a couple weeks, was it 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the season? Sort of, the Lions, the Giants, the Seahawks, who should end up in these playoffs. And, at the time I was like, the Lions or the Giants. And so to see the Giants get there and then succeed, I don't know, it just kind of feels like a win.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed that so much.
That was the paper tiger bowl for me. I was like, either one of these teams is the paper tiger of the season, and whoever loses, that's who it's going to be. And it turns out it was Minnesota.
Well, it's going to be interesting because we've got 3 NFC East teams in the divisional and then the Niners. So it's like, who do I root for? And it's the 2 teams that I would consider rooting for are playing each other. Because it's the Giants versus the Eagles, right?
Yes.
Giants and Eagles, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and those teams hate each other deeply and desperately.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun game. I hate both Cowboys and the Niners. And then on the other side of things, the Bengals and the Bills are my 2 backup teams. And so watching them play each other, and in like the DeMar Hamlin Bowl, where Cincinnati has a legit reason to be upset that this wasn't a coin flip, like to see who hosted it. They were, they very well could have beaten the Bills, and had they beaten the Bills, they would have been the 2 seed in this game and would have gotten to host the matchup. So like
That is kind of weird that wasn't
but
coin
part of
flip
the agreement,
or played on neutral
that's what I'm
ground.
saying.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, I thought this was supposed to be played on a neutral field if it happened, but I guess I misunderstood the if then scenarios that would lead to the neutral field.
I think the neutral field scenario only included the championship game.
Yeah, the AFC Championship game.
Oh, and then because of the way the seating, whatever.
You gotta
Yeah,
read that fine
Yeah.
language. You gotta read the fine prints.
yeah, I do. I feel like this
The
should at least be on a
express
neutral
language
field.
in the written contract.
The express language in the written contract. I see. Yes.
Whatever the case, I'm bummed that Sunday when that game is on, a friend of mine who I haven't seen since college is going to be in town and wants me to tour around Seattle, and she's never been here before. So I'm like, oh, am I going to get to watch that game? I don't know if I will, and that kind of sucks. But
That does kind of suck.
c'est la vie.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about Lamar Jackson and his decision to sit that game out, which for my money was the correct decision, considering, he has no guaranteed contract coming up, and why, risk your life or your playing career, playing for a team that, didn't give you a contract beyond this year. It's funny because Michael Vick had made a comment about it of like, you put a brace on, you strap up, and you play for your team. And then RG3 posted, a picture of him busting up his knee in that playoff game against Seattle, and like, or you protect yourself and have a career, which is the thing I should have done. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it's been talked about a little, it's been debated about a little bit in the media, but I think he made the right choice. And I'm curious to see
played
where it goes from
fantastic.
here. What's
Huntley
that?
did a great job.
Oh,
That
that's
game
the
was
thing.
not lost because of the quarterback.
Huntley is not by any stretch of the imagination a top end starting quarterback in this league, and I thought he hung in very admirably under the situation.
And I'm not sure that a hobbled Lamar Jackson gives him that much more of a chance to win that game.
Not based on what we saw this season. I mean, I know they won more games with him, but and I feel like I feel bad for the guy that he has to defend himself by revealing everything about his exact injury and his level. I mean, I think it was the tweet that I saw where he's like, I have a level 3 sprain, borderline 4 sprain with fluid, like having to explain yourself to that level to have people understand. Now, I did find it interesting he didn't travel or any of these other things, right? So that does make me feel a little less like he really wants to support the team.
Exactly.
But he also shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to convince people that you can't play if you say you can't play.
I 1000% agree.
And I feel like nothing proved all of this. One of my favorite things about the weekend and watching certain players is J.K. Dobbins, who came back from, his surgery and started playing this season. And trust me, as someone who drafted him high on their fantasy team, he did not play well. And he said, you know what? I'm sorry. I need to have another surgery. I know no one's telling me to have another surgery. I'm telling you I need to have another surgery. I have this scar tissue. Nothing feels right. I can't play to my level. I'm doing this. And he insisted on his own health care. He came back from that surgery and was absolutely the player he used to be. And he carried that team in this playoff game. So it just sucks how hard you have to advocate for your own health sometimes, especially at this level. I get it. You're Lamar Jackson and people want to know why you're not playing. But if he says he's not good to go, he's not good to go.
Yeah.
We have a tendency as fans, I think, to assume that the players owe us something or
Mhm.
owe their team something,
Mhm.
and that it's all this sort of like you're going to fight for Seattle because they paid you once. And I think it's total bullshit. And we're so wrapped up in this kind of idea that these people are superhuman, and thus should be able to play through anything and do it for the love of the city. But like Geno Wilson's from Florida. Now, does he love Seattle? It sure seems that way. But if he was injured and in a serious way and couldn't and determined that he couldn't play, what does he owe us as fans? He doesn't owe us anything. And it's okay to like, and if you're a strong enough man in that scenario to step back and say, I know a bunch of people are going to be disappointed with me, but I've got to take care of myself, then fuck yeah. I mean, like, look at what Tyler Lockett's doing in that regard, where he's like, I didn't play well because my mental health was not in this context or in this game. But like, he's talking so much about his mental health and how he's being really vulnerable in that regard. And like, that to me is what he owes himself, and it makes me like him more. But
Mhm.
we're so with Lamar Wilson, we need the proof, or else we're gonna hate him. Like, what the fuck is that? Like,
Right.
it's disgusting, and it's like we don't pay their salaries. Like, full
I
stop.
Yeah.
remember last year being frustrated. Like, good for you, Russell Wilson, that you think you should come back after your, major surgery on your thumb. But are you sure? Like, are you sure?
Mhm.
And he probably came back a week too early to prove a point that didn't need to be proven.
Yeah.
And also one of the other stories that I really was like happy to see was about Trevor Lawrence and his talk about mental health, and that
Mhm.
what he's learned and what's changed his gameplay this year is understanding that it really is the mental game when you get to this level. So
Mhm.
he's like, I could be the best physical quarterback. It doesn't matter if you mentally just can't handle what this game is in a moment.
Mhm.
Yeah. Something Johnny Manziel learned the hard way.
Yep. And
Yeah.
the other one, Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Doug Peterson's really good about getting the shrinks involved and other sort of counsel for his players.
That's awesome.
That
Doesn't
and that
surprise
comes
me.
from his time with Andy Reid too. Like that's
Yeah.
something that's followed him. Yeah.
Andy Reid
Yeah.
invests in the whole man, as does Pete Carroll. I think
As
that's
does
a
Pete
big
Carroll.
part of. I think that's part of the reason. It's funny that Bill Belichick doesn't, even though he gets players. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Some people
Um,
thrive in that environment, and if you can put
yes.
together a whole team of them, you can win.
The Patriots, I mean, honestly, are a quarterback and an offensive coordinator away from being contenders again. I don't know why they rolled into this season without an offensive coordinator. That's like,
They gave
especially
it to Pat or was it Matt Patricia, their old
defensive coordinator.
Like it's just the amount of sheer arrogance,
I know.
unchecked arrogance that Belichick has, where he just like he is the GM. Like he's
Yeah, he
everything
is.
there. And it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna, fuck it. I don't want,
I don't
want
need
to
one.
go with any like fancy schmancy offensive coordinator that's gonna leave me. I'm just gonna give it to Patricia. He knows tight ends. I'll just
Amazing. Yeah. So I don't know where do we want to do predictions for divisional round?
I don't think we need to do that.
All right.
I just want to know what your predictions are for the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think it is going to be Bengals 49ers. I think the Bengals are heating up at the exact right time. Yeah. Who's going to win that match? Probably the Niners.
I think that it's gonna be Bills. I'm gonna just say I'm gonna say Bills Cowboys. And I think the Bills are gonna crush them. I think that I really fundamentally believe that this is the Bills season.
Are the Cowboys going to be the first team who replaces their kicker in the postseason?
Talk about a
Yeah.
record you don't want. 4 missed extra points.
That was bananas. I think he had a bad game.
Yeah, I do too. I just don't know why you wouldn't go for 2. And then I don't know
Yeah,
why.
totally. Yeah,
Probably because they
totally.
were up 17-0 or 16-0.
Sure. But I don't know
after
why
the
you put him out there
third.
again on the 3rd try.
Yeah,
Just
just
at that
start
point,
going
just
for
go for
2.
2.
Your
Yeah.
offense is doing fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, it's weird. I really want the Bills to be it, but I maybe just to be contrary and throw out a different scenario, I'm gonna go Chiefs Giants.
Mm-mm.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that'd be kind of fun.
I think that Russ
would be a
is
very
really
Giants
gonna-
thing to do.
right.
Yeah, I think Rust is really actually going to impact the Eagles quite a bit in this particular matchup.
Particularly with the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I could totally see that.
Yep.
What's your thought, Curtis?
Okay, I know who my rooting interest is. I most definitely want the 49ers to get to the Super Bowl. And this is very
History
selfishly
repeating
as a
itself.
Seahawk fan. The teams that get to the Super Bowl tend to struggle the next year. And I want them to get battered up in that game. And I'm gonna say 49ers Chiefs rematch from a couple years ago, and I could give 2 fucks which team wins, just as long as the 49ers get banged up and exhausted and are easier to contend with next year once we've drafted Jalen Carter.
Oh man, all I want is Jalen Carter to fall to the Seahawks at number 5.
Yeah.
I think
Probably
that's-
won't happen, but like that's
Yeah,
that's,
it'll
that's
be-
what I'm
it'll
gonna go with.
be,
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with a rematch of those 2 teams from a couple years ago.
I think Jalen Carter is going to go to Arizona and harass the Seahawks for the next 10 years.
Probably that's the case.
I just want a replay of the Leon Lett Super Bowl. That's what I'm aiming for.
That'd be a great one.
Yeah. What did the Seahawks do this offseason? They're not that many pieces away from being a solid contender. I don't think. I think they got to upgrade center and right guard, but center I think is the priority on the offensive line. And
Definitely
and then
right
just-
guard as well. I feel like they need to.
Was
I
that
think
Gabe?
Gabe Jackson and Phil Haynes, and because they were rotating both players there, that tells me that Gabe Jackson is on his last legs, and Phil Haynes wasn't good enough to overtake him, but was just sort of spelling him. And then, weirdly enough, Austin Blythe was actually one of the best graded out players on the offense. By Pro Football Focus over the game on Saturday. He had a near 80 score, so he played pretty well. And I still think I would love to see Seattle go out and actually acquire, like, instead of draft the position there, that would be a position like go get a solid bat. That's like legitimately like a top end, like, veteran center on the market and stuff. But I feel now that Geno Smith is a lock to come back on a multi-year deal. I would guess probably either 3 or 4 years. I don't think, I'm just going to say my predictions. I don't think that they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. They might start taking shots as they get like in the mid rounds to draft and develop, but I feel like everything that Carroll said today in his press conferences, front seven is going to be the priority.
As it should
So
be.
they'll look to free agency and the draft there. That's going to be a linebacker and defensive line. And I would not be shocked if Seattle trades out of 5 to go a little bit further back in the top 10 and probably draft a player that they really like a lot who isn't Jalen Carter or the Will Anderson kid from Alabama, but they've got somebody else that they like in mind. And then they probably want to get about 5 picks in the top 50.
That's actually my prediction too. I think they're going to trade out of top 5. I think, those first 4 picks are pretty obvious, and then it gets muddy after that. And so trading out of that top 5 and getting, a few more, and you can really reload the team, especially, John Schneider is pretty good at finding diamonds in the rough. Getting players in 2nd rounds and 3rd rounds and 4th rounds, who can be, Tariq Woolen, 4th rounder, 5th rounder,
5th round.
5th round, just like Richard Sherman, just
Almost the
load it
exact
up.
number of pick. Like they were like 2 picks off.
That's wild. That's absolutely wild. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen too. And then I also see them really looking for, just like when they went out and got Cliff Averill and Mike Bennett, like find those role players out there, free agency. You can give them a decent sized contract, but not break the bank. Load it up. I'm excited. I think that's all they need. I think the secondary works pretty well. Get some front 7. Maybe go back to a scheme that works.
They gave some indications that could be.
I hope so. At least just see some heavier fronts, especially with the 49ers in our division. Yeah. And then upgrade the interior of that offensive line. I think that that teams really started picking on the interior of the offensive line later in the season when they saw they can exploit it, and that it was kind of Geno's kryptonite. Inside pressure was Geno's kryptonite. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the first pick is actually an offensive lineman. If there's, somebody there that they feel can be like an all-pro guard, and they can have some form of a, like what they had with Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson up front, and just, that the best answer for the 49ers is just to throw out the best offensive line in football against them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given, a talent like K9, just, a road grade offensive line, can't go wrong with that. That'd be really fun to watch. Yeah. I think they're pretty close. Be fun. Any other predictions for the off season?
I'm going to spend a lot of time watching the Mariners, especially if I can find a way to watch them not on Root Sports. Because once the season ends for the Seahawks, I don't care about it again until preseason, because I hate the conversation around contracts.
I love free agency.
I hate it so much.
I have a question that we don't have to dwell on, but it is, when can you or do you start negotiating? Like, is there a grace period of any kind? Like, could we offer Geno a deal tomorrow? He would sign it. It would be done. There's no reason that you have to wait.
We could offer Geno that deal, but I don't think we could offer another free agent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Internally, they can sign anybody they want right now. They could have done it through this course of the season.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering that. I think we signed Geno, and if I have my way, we go get ourselves a good center.
Yeah. Geno's definitely coming back. Both sides want it. The locker room wants it. Yeah. He's coming back. And good for him. He deserves it.
Yeah.
I know. So this was the first year in history that the Seahawks and the Mariners made the postseason at the same time. And our Kraken are well on their way to making the postseason as well. And man, oh man, that would be a lot of fun for Seattle sports fans. The Kraken just got done sweeping a 7-game road trip. That's the first time that's ever happened in NHL history. I think that's pretty exciting. They beat the NHL best Boston Bruins on their home turf, served on their first home loss of the season. Also pretty exciting with a dominant 3-0 shutout win. These Kraken are looking pretty good. Got top 3 offense in the league. They're one of those teams that they're not like, they don't do any one thing the best, but they do everything really well. And I think those are the kinds of teams that are built to win, where you have no real weakness and you can kind of win a game from any direction. I think that's pretty fun. And I'm super excited about these Kraken.
Yeah, for a second-year team especially, it's just really exciting to see how they're doing and how much it's pissing off other cities.
I'm actually super excited about the Kraken. Once football closes down, I might make the jump to Root Sports finally, just to watch a team that I can jump on the bandwagon for that isn't a football team.
Yeah, we're gonna start our Fubo subscription.
Oh, that's right. You can do it that way too, right?
You can, but I will tell you that Fubo is just as expensive as cable. So it really just comes down to what kind of internet connection you have or need and who you get it from. But if you want to have Root Sports on Fubo, it's the same as Xfinity. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's
Just get Xfinity.
close. It's close. You might save a little with Fubo. That's what we've been figuring out in our house.
I hated Fubo. I hated how it worked. Like
Oh,
the
good.
system was so bad for me that I chose to go to YouTube because Fubo sucked so hard.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to.
No, that's okay. We've been doing Sling and it took me a while to get okay with Sling. And we got something that incorporates outside the broadcast channels into Sling because they don't come with it. So that helped instead of having to jump around. Yeah, it's all, oh man, they don't make it
It
easy.
sounds like for baseball, the blackout rules are probably going to be massively changed this coming year. So there's a possibility that one could get the MLB TV situate extra innings or whatever, and be able to watch Mariners games in Seattle. So I know that they're working really hard on that. I don't see why Root Sports would be against that, to be perfectly honest, because they're going to get a cut of it. Like that,
Right.
that would be, but whatever the case, like I'm crossing my fingers for that because I would get that. But I'm not gonna switch to CenturyLink or whatever is required to access Root Sports, because YouTube TV is by far, in my experience, the best option for a cable package in terms of ease of use and quality of product.
Yeah.
Is Fubo the only streaming network that has Root
Yes.
Yeah.
Sports? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it. And as somebody who has ESPN Plus, the blackout rules for NHL are bullshit. Like, don't tell me I can watch it on these other outlets, only to tell me that even though the game is sold out, you still won't allow it to be on this other platform that I could watch anywhere else. Just not here in market. Like that's
right.
These
That's
rules are
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
I know. So if I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, I'd be able to watch the Kraken game, but I can't watch the Kraken game on ESPN Plus if I live in that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
I know. Well, the Kraken was super fun to watch. So join me in hopping on that bandwagon, Curtis.
I occasionally watch them on the internet through pirated means,
Yeah.
but I have no volume.
Yeah, I try not to.
And my wife thinks I'm watching porn when
when there's no volume. on it.
but no, I'm actually watching Kraken without any volume pirated. I don't want to tell her because I don't want her yelling at me that I'm going to give her a virus.
Amazing.
Like I already have before in the past.
Have you ever tried like using a VPN and setting your settings to another city out of market and see if that works?
I don't have a VPN, but I'm sure it would.
I bet it would.
I know Devin tried that once, and we just ended up going down a rabbit hole trying to make it happen. So
yeah,
we're not set up correctly for it. I'll tell. I know that much.
Yeah.
I felt less bad about the idea of doing that since I was like, look, I pay for ESPN Plus. You're just telling me I can't watch a game I couldn't go to in person.
It does. Make
It's
sense.
sold out.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, go Kraken.
Root sports, but go Kraken. Super fun. Like they're solidly in second place, and they have a real shot at overtaking the Vegas Golden Knights for first. They lost. The Kraken lost today, but so did the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's good news. Yeah, the
Kraken played an early game today too, right?
They
Yeah.
did.
They were in
and,
Tampa,
like,
or were they here?
no, they're here.
They're
but
here.
They they spent yesterday traveling, and so they haven't even really had 24 hours
Off
worth
of a
rest,
very
so-
long road trip.
off of a very long road trip. So I already scratched today's game off as a loss. I was just like, this
Yeah.
team is going to be dog tired, and
Yeah,
it looked
they
like
lost
it.
4-1.
Yeah, they look dog tired, and they were playing a good team. They play again tomorrow, and then I can't remember. And then they get a day off, and they play another game, and then they get like 4 days off or something like that. So they're just trying to make it out. They're just trying to get through the week. But yeah, maybe a day and a half worth of rest will give them a fighting shot tomorrow. But go Kraken. You're looking real good. Showing it up in that second year. I like it. It's exciting to watch. And that Manny Bediers is good at hockey.
I like that
You wanna-
kid.
Yeah, he's a good
I think he's
kid.
gonna be
I
a good
like
one.
that kid. He's gonna be a good one. I know. Yeah. Should we dork out about some stuff? Wanna dork
Sure.
out? Let's dork out. It's Curtis. What are we dorking out about?
In terms of what I've been viewing, last night we had a great family movie night where the three of us, my wife and I and our 4-year-old kid sat down and watched The Bad Guys.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar with this
Okay.
one?
That's
Huh?
it. Has
Yeah.
he read the books?
He's read the a couple of them that aren't that one, but by the same author. They piranhas don't eat bananas, and I feel like there's another one that was read to him a few times at his school, but he wasn't into a movie night, but once he started sort of just sitting down and watching the whole thing, he was just captivated. It was Deb, the two of you seen this one?
It's a real solid movie. Svea and I went, I want to say opening weekend.
Yeah, I saw it as well, and I think it was one of the funniest and more delightful things I saw last year.
I have not seen it. But
Well, you
maybe I
should.
check it out.
You should. It's my favorite animated movie since the Spider-Verse film came out.
Oh, dang.
Like that's
That's high
really
praise.
solid. It's for the kids and it's for the grown-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like it really
Mhm.
embraces what it is.
And it's not attempting realism in any way. Like that's what I think distanced it from some of the other more modern animations where it's intentionally cartoonish and it leans in to that cartoonishness, which is another thing that made Into the Spider-Verse so great. And
Mhm.
also, if you haven't seen Mitchell's versus the Machines, that's another one where the cartooniness is ratcheted to 11, and it's phenomenal. That's another great one. Highly recommend.
I just saw that for the first time within like the last 2 weeks. Devin and I watched it, and yeah, I loved it, and I loved how they incorporated multiple kinds of animation within it. And the story itself is fantastic. So Mitchell's versus the Machines for sure.
All right.
Nice.
I haven't heard of that one either. That sounds great. I haven't seen it yet. This is what I'm dorking out about though. I've been watching. I've been waiting for the reviews for The Last of Us, which is an HBO show based on the video game series, which takes place during zombie apocalypse. Excellent video game series, maybe the best narrative video game series. And I'm always a little bit wary about like TV shows and movies based around video games, because a lot of times they kind of like get it wrong. That, you know, the two storytelling mediums are wildly different what you have to do. But the reviews coming out from The Last of Us are real good. So I'm excited to dive in and watch it.
It is tremendous.
I love it. That's what I was waiting for.
It was created by Craig Mazin, who made the Chernobyl TV show.
Which is fantastic.
And co-created by Neil Druckmann, who made the video game. So the original creator is very hands-on. The biggest negative feedback it's gotten has been from white supremacists, because they're casting, you know, Sarah is played by Tandy Newton's daughter.
Mhm.
And then there are other characters who have had their racial identity switched in some way or another, including, I think, Pedro Pascal and Gabriel Luna, who plays Tommy. I thought it was tremendous. I really liked it, and I haven't played the game because I don't have a PlayStation.
I'm looking forward to it.
So I just wanted to say that I am dorking out on the fact that I'll just do two things, because I was going to say The Last of Us. My kid had her first fencing tournament today. That's why I've got the picture, and she's been working so hard. And it was just like an in-class tournament, and she lost her first match 3-5, but her goal was to score 1 point. And then she won her second match. And then she lost her third match 3-5. So she went in there wanting to notch one hit, and she notched 11. And I just think that it's awesome that she's found something that she's a physical activity she's so engaged with. And it's not something that I would have ever picked for her, but she's thrilled by it. The other thing I wanted to say, this is more of a plea that's also part of dorking. Please don't get the Hogwarts Legacy game. Please don't pay any money to J.K. Rowling. Please don't pay any money to the company that made that game, because it was a bunch of white supremacists who don't like Jews. And they actively were in the development process creating a narrative that was anti-Semitic. And if there's anything that impacts my family, it's hate towards Jews and hate towards trans people. And there's a great tweet that is being circled around, which is Hogwarts Legacy isn't a game, it's a character test, and a lot of people are about to fail it. So I don't want to talk about Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling all the time. And so if you don't get that game, then maybe we don't have to talk about it. And that would be awesome for everybody involved. So don't play that game.
What's this game?
A Hogwarts Legacy. It's the wizarding
an
world of
MMO?
Harry. Yeah. Well, no. It's not an MMO. It's Assassin's Creed and Hogwarts, but it's not parkour based.
Got it.
It's just,
Got it.
You're playing through a narrative. It's a narrative story where you have a lot of opportunity to interact with the world, and it's about a goblin rebellion, which is where the anti-Semitism comes in really hot, because the goblins are like treated very poorly. So, and orcs, orcs or whoever run the banks. I forget if it's goblins or
It's
but they're
Goblin.
Okay, but they're a stand-in for because J.K. Rowling is also an anti-Semite. Don't play that game. Don't give them any money, please.
I wasn't gonna. I had actually forgotten that game was even coming up. That's good to know. Millie, what are you talking about?
Well, if you have listened to this podcast this long and this late, I am here to deliver some somewhat sad news, which is that this will be our last dorking because this will be our last episode. We have, as a group, decided that we've had a great run and we've had a lot of fun. And for those of you who have come on this journey with us, thank you so much. But as a group, we have decided to take time away and to close the chapter on Dorks on Sports. Who knows what's to come for any and all of us in the future with podcasts. But for right now, that's the decision that we've made. So I want to dork out over this podcast. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Curtis, who brought this group of dorks together with an idea. And I still remember many, many years ago having a conversation with Curtis, I believe in the knife room of the now defunct Cafe Nordo, discussing his idea for doing a Seahawks podcast. And would I like to maybe come on once in a while? I could be the fantasy person, talk fantasy football. I said, I would love that. Absolutely. I love the Seahawks. I love you, and I love fantasy football. I'm in. And, a year later, I was sitting at a table with 3 other dorks, and Curtis had come up with a really solid idea of bringing some things that we all cared about and loved together. First and foremost, being the Seahawks, but also being Seattle sports in general, and what it was like to be a Seattle-based performing artist who liked all of those things, and finding a way to marry that.
Niche.
It was very niche. It is very niche. We have had some amazing guests, which might be some of my favorite episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think our last 2 episodes have been 2 of our best ones. So
honestly,
we're going out on a high.
We are.
So Alana, Dan, Curtis, thank you for being such a wonderful base. I love our chats. I love talking to you. I don't think that is probably going anywhere. And I hope everyone is able to take this time with their family and their lives. But just thank you. I really appreciate it. And to our 12s of listeners, especially those of you, and I know there are a few who really have listened to all or almost all of these podcasts. Thank you. Thanks for giving us your time. Thanks for believing in us. Thanks for leaving us messages on Facebook. Like, it means the world. It's just been an absolute pleasure and thrill to do this.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one thing to kind of caboose on that, which is this social interaction, this weekly social interaction we've had over the last 2 years really pulled me out of a deep funk as a result of the pandemic. Having some way to talk to people that I had seen in real life and not just people on the internet or in Facebook comments or whatever. Given the fact that we started this right before the 2021 season, rode through the last year of Russell Wilson and the first year of Geno Smith, and we're able to, talk to and create community with each other along the way. That was special for me, and I appreciate having y'all in my lives to be there for that.
I agree. The one thing about sports is that it connects, right? It connects people. And I think that's something this podcast did, not just for me and my friendships with the 3 of you, but for the 12s of listeners out there. And I hope you all feel connected to us in the same way. I can't speak for everybody, but if you're listening, you're not following me on social media, feel free to follow me on social media. I like to do live chats of sports when they're going on, and that's one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, it's been a good run, and I've had a hell of a time. This was just as a Seahawks fan, this is one of my favorite seasons, and I've been watching the Seahawks for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite seasons as a Seahawks fan. And it's been fun covering that on this podcast.
Yeah, I've been a diehard Seahawks fan since the early 80s, and this has probably been one of the most enjoyable seasons that I've had. And definitely since probably, I would say 2014, 2015 sort of thing like that. After a while, I feel like when the LLB started to sort of fizzle out a bit, these seasons started to feel a little bit more dogged, but this one,
the same.
Yeah, this one was really just, for me, was about just sort of a rebirth of the program, and getting back to the DNA of drafting and developing, and being the underdog. I mean, the classic sort of like, it's more fun to be the hunter than the hunted, in sports. It's more fun to go after the teams that are expected to win as opposed to being got after, and it was fun to see players that nobody had any expectation. Like, there was players on this team that became Pro Bowl players that none of the pundits, none of the fans, most of the fans didn't have any expectations of them playing to the level that they did. And that was super exciting.
Yeah. Including, by the way, some of our biggest free agency pickups, like Uchenna Nwosu. I don't think anybody expected him to have the season that he did. Man, he blew up. He played great.
9.5 sacks, right?
Yeah. And he played great again against that 49ers team. Yeah. And seeing Bruce Irvin come back, and he's going to finish his career in Seattle. I just love that all those old LOB guys are coming back to finish their career. And I think more of them would have if they were given the opportunity. I think Richard Sherman absolutely would have. And Michael Bennett said he wanted to, and he just wasn't given the contract. But I love seeing that. And that's a nice bridge. And
I just want to thank
ahead.
each one of you for saying yes to this project and being a part of this thing. And it really was sort of a niche thing that I was kind of hoping would happen. And I think we absolutely nailed it. It was, and we did it with 4 very different personalities, giving each their own perspectives on thing, but also kind of coming from similar places too, in this whole Seattle theater community to which we've all been a part of, and being, diehard sports fans. So, it's been fun putting this together and sharing this to the listening audience that we have had over the past year. And this was a really cool experience to be a part of with the 3 of you. So thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah. And thank you, all 12 of you out there for listening.
I think we have like 20 subscribers on YouTube. When last time I looked, maybe 24. I don't know. We've doubled the number.
And we do are just my ghost accounts.
I really think we do this for us, right? Like, I think it's an important thing to remember, and if people listen to it and enjoy it, that's even better.
Oh, absolutely. I just like hearing myself talk, so I'm kidding.
You do it so
on that note.
Yeah, it's been great. And I look look forward to seeing the Seahawks go to the Super Bowl next year. So
Huh.
Gino's going to win a Super Bowl for the city of Seattle, and it's going to be the best story in sports in a decade. It's going to be awesome.
I firmly believe that's going to happen.
We'll go back to back. Mariners World Series, Seahawks Super Bowl, and back
Manifest.
to back, and then Kraken with Shane Wright,
Kraken Stanley Cup.
Rookie of the Year this year.
It's going to be so good. All right. Hey, if you're listening out there, you should check out Curtis's blog, 12life.com. He won't be back here every week, but he'll be writing the blog. You should read it. And I invite you, give me a follow on social media if you want to find me. You're not my friend already, send me a friend request. I'll answer it. One last time, my name is Daniel for Curtis, Millie, Alana, the rest of the 12s saying goodbye and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.